Okay. Hello and welcome to OCD Gamechangers Fireside Chats. We have been bringing these to you in the last 6 or 7 weeks to help support and normalize what you may be going through in this time of uncertainty, which is the COVID-19 coronavirus, all of the mayhem, all the uncertainty we're all experiencing. So thank you so much for being here. And my name is Chrissy. I'm the executive director and the founder of OCD Gamechangers, which is a nonprofit that helps bring community together. We try to pull resources. We try to make people know and understand they're not alone with OCD and help connect them to people that can help. And I'm also the author of Pure OCD, The Invisible Side of Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, and I am a certified peer support specialist. So I'm certified here in the state of Colorado, and I can work to support people through peer consultations and referral consultations worldwide to help connect you to people who can help with OCD, experts like Miss Amy here, who's joining us today, and I will let her introduce herself to all of you.
All right. Thanks, Chrissy. I'm so excited to be here. And it's a little bit daunting after your introduction. But I'm Dr. Amy Mariaskin. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a clinical psychologist and owner and director of the Nashville OCD and Anxiety Treatment Center, where I have the privilege of working with a team of 8 therapists. We have therapists all across disciplines. So we have psychologists, social workers, counselors, and in all different stages of training, as well as 2 students who are also rotating in the clinic. Mm-hmm. We specialize in the treatment of OCD, anxiety, and related disorders. Yes, we need more.
Yes.
So ages, we say 6 and up, but I have treated as young as 4. If it's true OCD, it's pretty rare, but
amazing.
They need it. And the earlier we treat it, the better chance they have of kind of getting a handle. And they're incredible and inspirational. I love the little ones. Let's see, I'm also an adjunct professor at Vanderbilt University, where I provide supervision to students in the doctoral program, which is great. It's always fun to work with the youngins. They keep me fresh. They keep me on my toes so that I don't become too much of like a curmudgeon, like, They're always like, did you see this research study? And I'm Googling it. I'm like, yes.
You're like, yeah, I wrote it.
Yeah, that was me. And then I also am one of the people who manages at OCD Nashville, which is our Instagram account. And I am—
Yes, you're the illustrator. Tell us more. I wanted to ask you about that. You're all like, illustrator at OCD Nashville. And I'm like, who are you? Tell us.
I mean, I've always been a person who just loves drawing. I love doodling. I love creative pursuits. I love art. And, it was like when I was in graduate school, it sort of helps me think. So I would be doodling on my notes and things like that. And I remember once I went up to my physiology professor and I had a question, and I kind of had my notebook, and I asked him, and he just pointed down at my notebook. We were learning about the GI tract, and I'd drawn this like dancing gut with like a top hat. And he's like, I wonder why you don't understand this. And I was like, it helps me consolidate information. So it's something I'm doing anyway. Like, I love drawing and I love mental health. And I wanted to, in addition to, this is why I think Gamechangers is so cool, in addition to the provision of direct service that I get with my own kind of clients that I work with, in addition to supervision, training, teaching, that kind of stuff, I wanted to do some kind of awareness raising and some education, and to put it in a sort of palatable, like almost cute format. I'm not saying the content is cute. I'm not saying the disorders are cute.
It's appealing for people to see. Yeah. And engage with. I mean, who really wants to engage with like literal sexual or violent intrusive thoughts?
Yeah. Right.
Way better as a cartoon.
Yeah. Yeah. Softens the edges.
Well, this is awesome. And thank you to all of you who are joining. I see so many people. Someone said they follow you on Instagram. Yay, Sophia, awesome. And, hi, Cassie, and hey, Pete, if you're there. And Frank Green, oh my gosh, hello. Frank he and I worked at the airport a long time ago. Frank, what would we be doing right now if we worked at the airport right now? I mean, it would just be all mayhem. Anyway, so let me go ahead and keep going with what we want to talk about today. But first, if you are new to our Fireside Chats, just to tell you a little bit what we're doing here. We thought as a board for Game Changers, it's really important to provide some sort of resource coming out of Game Changers. We're all about community. We're all about really supporting people where they're at. And so I had this idea of what if we did fireside chats based off of the fireside chats that were done during the Depression, where the president would come on and just address the nation, minus political, minus fear, minus everything else, just knowing that someone is acknowledging what you might be going through during this time. Because this is unprecedented, uncertain times where all of us don't know how to feel. We don't know how we're supposed to feel or should be feeling. And so I thought, how cool would it be to get people that are experts, to get people who live with OCD, to get people who have access to our community to come in and say, but here's how I'm feeling. Because when we know someone else is feeling the way that we feel less alone. We feel more motivated. We feel more hopeful. So my hope is that that's what we've done here with these firesides. Based on the information I'm getting back from people, I know that they've been really effective. And so I appreciate you being there. And yes, Ethan Smith, I see you about discussing shadow fears, and we can do that all day long. He's trying to trip me up.
Okay. We'll try it.
He's trying to trip me up with Carl Jung shadow fears, but I got you, bro. Anyway, I am also going to be fanning here. So if you're thinking like, why is Christy's hair blowing a little bit? It's because I know y'all are going to think I'm nuts, but it's like 75 here and I'm so hot. And so, I'm just fanning for that reason. Anyway, with that said, let's begin the fireside. So Amy, tell us, what has been your experience? We're 7 weeks in. It's May 1st, right? 7 weeks in.
Yeah.
Tell me.
It is, okay. So, those emotion wheels, actually. Well, I don't know.
Oh,
the emotion wheel. I
have an emotional wheel right here.
Yeah. Imagine. And then I go like this and I close my eyes and I hit it. It could be any emotion. I mean, since this has started, and I should back up to say that I'm in Nashville. Prior to COVID, I think it was about a week or so before COVID, we had a devastating tornado that hit the city. Some major damage in neighborhoods. Thankfully, loss of life was relatively low, but that happened. And so I've been thinking a lot about community, the Nashville community getting together, some of the folks from the clinic, we got together, we did some volunteer work. We were in these other communities and just seeing, people lost their homes and just thinking, isn't this great? We can all come together. And of course we were like coming together in close quarters. We're like lifting up logs together. So in COVID's a little bit in the background. I mean, I was aware enough that I was like, should I wear, my work gloves? I guess I'll wash them afterwards. But we had that sort of collective trauma prior to COVID. So we were all trying to come together and then sort of told, stay home. So it really felt a little bit like those classic psychology experiments about learned helplessness where the shock dog in the sad.
Yes, I know this.
I feel like, so for those who might not know it, they had this room and half of the room had like an electric charge on the floor and then the other half didn't. And I hope this is unethical now because leave dogs alone, but
I know.
Right. But they put the dogs on one side and when they were shocked, they went to the other side. Then they erected a barrier and the dogs couldn't escape. And then they removed the barrier and the dogs just still didn't escape. They just took it.
Yes.
And I think at times I felt learned helplessness. I have felt when, going to pick up food from a local restaurant, really wanting to still support the small businesses and having to drive through the tornado-stricken area. Those have been some of the moments where I've snot crying, like I probably shouldn't be driving. So that to sort of numbness, to a lot of anger, to, at this point now, what I'm finding is I feel so much like everything, so much control has been wrested out of our hands that I feel really passionate about asserting control when I can. And sometimes like, I don't want to be told what to do. So that's kind of the flavor of now. So that was
and we talked about this beforehand, which is awesome. So we were talking about the impact, and I personally, I felt this from day one. I don't have to go into all details. If you've watched these fireside chats, you can read between the lines on how I feel. But I've also begun to see in emails I'm getting from people and talking with people who are suffering with OCD, the impact of what the restrictions are doing to people and how they're feeling about it. So I think this is an important distinction. It's this, okay, we have like, it's almost, I don't want to say black and white because we know how that perpetuates stuff, but you have this whole, okay, here's what we need to do over here. Here's square one. Okay. Do all these little restrictions and then you're not killing people. And then over here, it's this, yeah, but I feel a certain way when people are putting restrictions on me. And for me, what I try to do in supporting people with OCD through peer support is just to say, I know this is hard because we already feel restricted in our own brains. We already feel like there are enough things that we can and can't do or else. So now when our outside world is starting to meet that inside world, it's like the perfect storm. Unfortunately, Mark Wahlberg isn't here with us to talk about the perfect storm. Well, he was dead in the movie, so I guess. Anyway, tangent. But I just had to throw that in because I watched it the other night. But anyway, but it is like the perfect storm brewing of the outside and the inside, and then just feeling like I don't know how to feel, and I'm getting shamed for both ways. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I think for me, it's manifesting in this kind of, I don't know, like this sense of rebellion about, I am willing to follow restrictions, right? Like I'm willing, okay, fine. I know it's important. Fine.
Your facial expression.
I'm really okay with it. Can't you tell?
So much like me. You're like, I'm willing to follow restrictions.
Yeah. I will. And I know that's like what we have to do. And I am finding myself like very, reluctant to, so for example, and I don't know if my mom is watching this, but she's in my neighborhood. So sorry, Mom, because she's part of it. Okay. I live in a neighborhood that is we're close knit, and there are musicians in the neighborhood. And so there's like a social distancing concert tonight where, it's Nashville. So like, so-and-so was a songwriter for these famous people. And so somebody's going to be playing piano and they're going to open their back porch and there's kind of like this grassy area and we're all invited to go out there and listen to the music. I don't want to go. I don't want to go because I don't know because I don't. And the thing is, I was somewhat interested. And then all these folks in the neighborhood were like, remember the concert, come to the concert, remember that concert. It's going to be great. And I'm like, don't tell me what to do. And which is it's a benign thing, right? Like, is it going to hurt me to go to the concert? No. Would I enjoy it? Maybe. But it's the fact that I'm being asked to do like anything. It's really hard. I have an article due today and I'm going to write it, but getting the reminder yesterday, like, hey, just so you know, reminder, I wanted to write back and be like, well, never mind then. And so that's where I'm feeling that sort of tension, that wherever I can assert control, I want to do it, obviously, like in a healthy way, because I think we need that sense of like autonomy.
I have some comments about this. First, I want to tell you, Darcy Howell, I'm so sorry. I did say a spoiler about the movie. I'm sorry. I didn't even think about it. But the truth is, I'm just trying to rationalize here, is I think it's a true story. And so everyone died anyway on the ship. But my apologies. I spoiled the movie for everyone who wanted to watch it. My apologies. But anyway, I just had like this mind blown moment. Okay. So I'm going to share it with you. When you were talking about going to the concert and in the neighborhood, and okay, this is where my mind went. I was like, I would do the same thing. I would be like, I'm not going to the concert, yada, yada, yada. And this is why. And I think I said this on a couple fireside chats ago when we were talking about grief, and we were talking about finding the silver lining. To me, kind of the forced, oh, let's do this, let's do that. It's celebrating what we're going through right now. And I don't want to. Yeah. And I don't want to feel bad that I don't want to do that. And so it's, and I felt guilty about this. So I'm glad we're bringing this up is, you know, I'm going to say this out loud. And if this is what you've done, like, I'm not just, not you, but anybody, I'm not like dogging on you at all. I'm just telling you how I feel. It's the idea of how people are posting like their cute face masks on Facebook and saying, oh my gosh, look at this cute. I don't want to see your cute face mask. Yeah. It's not helping me. It makes me feel awful. It makes me feel worse. I hate that we even have to do this. And if that makes me a horrible person because I can't positively adapt, then I don't know what to say other than I don't feel that way and I'm not going to join the celebration. And that's, I think it just needs to be said because a lot of people are feeling that way and feeling like, am I just an asshole because I'm not excited about putting on like my face mask that has flowers all over it? No, I'm not excited about that. And I'm not going to be excited. And I feel guilty when I see those and I don't feel excited.
Yeah. Well, and to me, the issue is not that some people are excited about it. That's fine. As long as those people don't have the expectation that anybody else needs to be. You know what I mean? People finding a silver lining, fine. But don't expect me to find one, or don't expect, everyone to find one. And if you, are there aspects of this that I'm enjoying? I love spending more time with my husband and my dog. I love that. Do I feel a need to like sort of leverage that above the quote unquote negative emotions that I'm feeling? No, because they're all here.
I love that. I love that. Leveraging the emotions. That's, I'm writing that down.
Awesome. And I think it's funny that you say that too, because even with concerts, I'm like not very likely to go to see a concert of somebody that I do like. I actually have an aversion to, and I don't know what this says about me because I'm a happy person. I'm a joyful person to be around. My clients like me, I think. My friends like me. And I do not like to be around large groups of people expressing any one emotion together. It freaks me out. So if I'm at a sporting event, like the Nashville Predators hockey team, and there are like chants and everybody's doing the same chant and like clapping, I'm freaking out. I'm like, it must be inauthentic. Somebody is sad. So I think
are they actually called the National Predators?
Yeah, it's not great.
Okay, because when you were starting to say this, I was like, oh my God, what kind of rally are you at? Like the National Predators? Like, Amy, we need to chat.
Sorry, guys. Surprise. No, it's a hockey team. It's not a great name. They do this thing where it's like fang fingers and you do this and that's supposed to be scary for the other team. And I'm from Pittsburgh and we have real hockey. So like, whatever.
Anyway, no, but back to the original point outside the Predators. No, I completely get it. And I think, gosh, I'm so glad that you brought that up because I think, and Cassie actually just remarked, and thank you, Darcy, that's funny. Because she's like, I don't even have an idea what movie you were talking about. And I totally am like, oh my God, I'm having intrusive thoughts about how I just spoiled the movie for everyone. Yeah. But anyway, Cassie just remarked, agrees. Sometimes forcing people to find a silver lining feels invalidating. And I think that's exactly what's going on here. And I'm glad that we're covering it again in the degree of like real time. When you're watching social media, when what's going on in your neighborhood, when what's going on in your communities, we're celebrating trauma. That's what I feel like it is. And I didn't understand that until our talk. So Amy, thank you. This is amazing. And it's not like, I think what I mean is like, we're being forced to celebrate the new circumstances that I don't want. I don't want to keep celebrating. And I realize as I think, let me back up for a minute because I'm rambling and all excited. I just had a cup of coffee right before we started, as you can tell. I think what's happened this last week, and I think Chris and I mentioned this on Tuesday, is everybody was having this anticipation of like, okay, at the end of April, this is all going to be over. We're all going to be done with this. And then we're going to move on, which, if you look into it, we all know it's not. But there is just this finish line mentality of, okay, at this time. And then April 27th came. And all of a sudden, it's this, every state's different. I know Tennessee's all like, let's open up. And Colorado is, a little bit like that, but we still have precautions in place depending on the county. But I do think that moment of, okay, what's going to happen, what's not going to happen, which kind of, if you sat back a month ago, you would know that it's not going to be okay. But we just want to hold on to that hope of maybe it will be. And now we know for sure. So it is that piece of the certainty, uncertainty. People are really going over the edge now of, I can't do this for another 2 weeks. I can't do this for another month. I cannot accept that this is how it's going to be. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think if ever there were a time for like a call to mindfulness, and again, this isn't like a judgy thing, like, well, if you're not being mindful day to day, then like that's a problem. But I think for me, I am trying to both do this personally as well as, impart this to the people that I talk to, which is instead of kind of these deadlines about, well, it's definitely, it's probably going to be done by this day, or it must be by this time. And, I'm like a lot of us in the OCD community, I'm very excited about the conference that may or may not happen in person.
Oh, you mean in Seattle?
Yeah. Yeah.
I know.
And so what I'm doing, because I can get sort of, I think we all can get sort of fixated on these dates. Okay, well, by then, is taking a step back. And instead of getting caught up in, well, I can't do this for 2 more months. I can't do this for, a year. I can't, spiraling, is just, can I do this for 2 more minutes? Or what can I do in the next 2 minutes that is in accordance with my values, that is within the parameters of, the restriction. I'm doing a lot of talking with people about kind of what you can, spheres of control, what you can and can't control, and then being in what you can control. Looking at that as, again, not to be sort of silver lining-ish, but kind of, okay, well, can you focus on this moment? And if what you can control right now is, I have a lot of grief and I need to process that, that's okay too. This can control doesn't have to be. I know everybody's saying it, or a lot of your guests are saying like, now's not the time to like, get a personal record in your running, write a novel. I think it's great if you're doing that kind of stuff. I'm a creative coper, so I have been doing like more drawing and stuff like that. A lot of it's not for like consumption by others, because it's like, it's not all cute cartoons, but I feel like I lost the question a little bit. But there's this idea of like, I don't think that we have to be, that we have to be doing kind of any one thing, or that projecting into the future. Although it's natural, I think that's where I come back to, okay, I'm going to like, I'm up in my meditation game. I'm doing my, and coming back to, I can get through this kind of like moment by moment, which I think a lot of people who've been in treatment can relate to that, because, it's like you start treatment and you're looking at the top of this vast mountain.
Yes.
And you're like, I will never be able to do that exposure. Okay, but can you do the next step? And so for me, that's how I'm looking at time. How do we get through like this week or this day, and it's tough.
It is. And I think that the importance of mindfulness, and I was on with the Intrusive Thoughts panel, the IOCDF, on Wednesday or Tuesday, one of those days. And we were talking about the mindfulness aspect, and how, for me, it's when I overanalyze mindfulness, it can get out of control. And that means like all the shoulds and exactly what you're talking about. I have all this time. I mean, oddly enough, I feel busier now than I did before. I'm, doing a lot more of the videos. I'm engaging more with the community and trying to help find, and business wise, I can't keep up with the emails and things like that, but that's also a stressor.
Yeah.
Those of us in the mental health field, I think that's something we haven't really taken a look at, how this is going to impact us in the next 6 months when there's the fallout. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
And I just want to acknowledge Sue Ellen, saying having lots of suicidal thoughts. It's no celebrating for me. I just want to share with you really quick, Sue Ellen, like the day actually of doing the panel chat for the intrusive thoughts, like I was bawling my eyes out before we started and bawling my eyes out afterwards. I just had this day that was just filled with gloom and doom. It was, and I don't even know what it was. I was doing exactly what I would normally do. I went and worked out. I had clients. I went to the store I usually go to, but it was just this, as I'm driving home, I was thinking, if I'm looking through the lens of the world now in COVID and how everything has changed and how it's going to go back, how is that any different than the normal world and the degree of the loss of hope? It was a very weird, it wasn't even an OCD moment. It was just this scary feeling of like, well, then why is it worth even living if you're not in restrictions? You know what I mean? I had these weird thoughts and came home, and then I was like, I have to be on for the next hour and a half for this live panel.
Yeah.
And I did the panel, and I was crying before and I was crying after. And luckily my friend Ethan Smith, if he's still watching, like I talked with him and he was just like, tomorrow may be a different day. Like just, this is part of the process. And I was able to just say, today was shitty. Yesterday was shitty. That's okay. And then yesterday I didn't sleep the night before, so it was awful. And then I slept 10 hours last night. I feel a little different today. So the concept of mindfulness is so difficult. As much as we want it to be, I should feeling this way. It's also, I'm feeling this way right now, but I can trust that that feeling isn't going to last.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what do I do if it does? I guess making the plans of, if I'm continuing to feel gloom and doom for 7 or 14 days straight, okay, what can I do? There are options.
Right. Yeah. And I think that the sort of sudden, like I was saying, I had one of those sudden crying out of nowhere when I was driving through the tornado. I've also had it. Well, I had it when I got a little bit of a fever and I got a little bit of a cough. And to talk a little bit about, not too much, but sort of about my own history with with anxiety. I am a person who in middle school, when it came out, I decided to read the book, The Hot Zone.
Oh, I know.
Well, it was, I know, but it was clearly, it was anxiety related. It was a compulsive act because I was like, I'm terrified by this, but like, I need to know everything about Ebola. So I feel like I've had pandemic worries. This is familiar to me.
Yes.
This is, so with that background, I got a bit of a fever, I got a little bit of a cough, and I never got tested or anything like that. It was quite mild, but the distance between my body feels weird to I am having images of like myself on a ventilator and my business is going down because like, oh, I'm the only one who does this, that, and the other. And I haven't done a professional will yet. And I spiraled out and I knew I had to do that. Like for me, and that's not for everyone. I'm not trying to like shame people who haven't had breakdowns. If you haven't, like, okay, I guess I don't know any of you, but so I think that idea of like, out of nowhere, just having a hard day. I've had a number of those. And I think it's when I say mindfulness, also, yeah, that mindfulness of like, this feels really bad and it's here. It's here. So if I try to kind of push that away, either by doing things like, for me, I was like, well, I could check my temperature a lot. And I was like, oof, okay, that's not helpful. Yeah. I could Google okay, not helpful. I could, like all the things I tell my clients not to do all the time, they all came up in my head, like, have you considered this? And instead I was just like, kind of, I don't know, sort of like not letting my, I guess sort of letting my mind go there, because that's where it's going. That's where and I had to kind of process through that. And I think that so much of our pain and suffering is born out of trying to mitigate our pain and suffering instead of just getting through it. And like you said, shame, that's part of the reason we do it. We should feel this way, etc.
Trying to control the uncertainty. So I just need to know what's going to happen so I can prepare for it, which I think is why, even just saying that, it's hitting me a little bit more of why this has been so stressful. And then people having to go through the degrees of emotion, because let's say this is a morbid analogy, but I'm just going to say it. But let's say if you lose a loved one, but you know that they have a diagnosis of something and it's going to be like 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
You can mentally prepare, even though that's going to be devastating. You can mentally prepare, and you can at the same time, like, communicate whatever you need to. We didn't have that here. And I want to emphasize that, everyone's situation and response to this is okay. And it's acceptable. And depending on where you lie in the process of it, I've said before, and I will say again, like, I lost a business during the recession or right after the recession. So for me, COVID hits, and that's the first thing I think about. How many businesses are going to be impacted after 4 weeks and 6 weeks? I'm not on the lawns protesting with AR-15s, just so you know.
No, right?
Like, I'm not that person, but I am and have felt from day one, because I can learn from experience what it feels like to all of a sudden watch the news and go, the recession's going to hit. And then it hits and you go, this is real, and I'm losing everything. How devastating is that for people? And so my point with that is, I'm struggling the most with COVID, with the shaming on both ends. You cannot say to people, like, if you don't stay home, you're killing people. Like, you should not be, I just shouldn't. But like, that's so wrong to say, when in reality, on the other side of things, people are going to lose their entire life, savings, their businesses, their everything that they've worked for. And you can't compare it to, well, death is better than this, or, death is not as good as this. That's so unfair and so non-empathetic. And that's the shaming that I can't take.
Yeah, I think it's just it's also, I mean, it's so black and white for people when people say that, because, I think oftentimes the people who are saying that are the people who have the privilege not to have to, who can stay home, right? Like, easy for you to say if you don't have that much on the line. As a first-time small business owner, and we're not even 2 years old, applying for government assistance for like a backup or a just in case, and then seeing our referrals dip down, and like taking care of my clinicians and taking care of, making sure that they feel confident in me and in the business. And did I save enough? And that is real as well. And my worries about that do not negate my concern for human life, or my very real fears about also, what it is like for individuals who are dying alone in hospitals. Like, they can coexist.
Exactly. It's why compare one to the other when it's all suffering?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so like, I think when we're suffering and we're out of control, sometimes there's this impulse to sort of like grasp for, well, I just became an epidemiologist because I read Google, and here are the facts, and I am right. And I do not understand that impulse. Can't we come together around, like, we don't know? And so what do we need to be doing? Well, like, respecting each other and sort of like, loving on each other from a distance.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's it been like in your practice and for your clinicians and even like your community on Instagram and stuff? What are you hearing from people? What has it been like for them? And in return, like your response to them and how you're supporting them.
Yeah. I'll start with the clinic and with the business. So again, we did have a little bit of a hit to referrals, which is understandable. I think that people both need mental health care and are concerned about where their finances were going. So we had a hit for a little while and then kind of a bumped back up. With the clinicians, we have continued to do weekly clinic meetings where everybody checks in. And I said, actually, after the tornado, before COVID even happened, I was like, look, today's clinic lunch, we can do case consults, but I want you all to know that, we're here to support each other. A number of people were from neighborhoods that were directly affected and their homes were okay. But, and I said, and, I'm human too. So like, let's all, sort of modeling, I want to create a culture of compassion and vulnerability that not only extends to our clients, but is also part of our,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we've had a lot of those meetings where it's just like, we're talking about how we're doing. I did assure them, hey, we're okay. Like the business is okay. But I will also let you know if things, we need to cut certain things. I owe that to you. But as far as I know, we're going to be okay. And we have been, talking with clinicians as well about, one of our values as well, we want to increase accessibility of services. So we are going to have clients who cannot afford services right now. Let me know. We can do sliding scale. We can do pro bono. We're not going to abandon any clients in this time. And if that means that the clinic has to recoup the difference of like whatever I pay you, we'll figure it out. And so we've had a little bit there. Unfortunately, that kind of means that with new clients, I do have to make sure, I don't know, the business side, I have to make sure that we're getting some people that still can pay full fee. So that's been a fun dance for somebody who's like not a business minded person. But
well, yeah, I think that's a really good topic that may seem touchy, but at the same time, something to, something to address is, what are business owners right now in mental health? You and I both are, it's where does it, how do we serve the people that we need to serve? Because we know that mental health is now way up here, but also keeping in mind, I have this business that I have to pay. You have employees, you have to pay. And where's the balance there? I actually, that's what I've been struggling with the most this week is I want to show up and be there for people all over the world, but I can't do that for free.
Yeah. And you wouldn't be effective also if you're showing up for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, I think I always preach that, but I think now I'm also realizing like, where are the boundaries of my, maybe they're a little bit lower in terms of how much I can take on for my own caseload, right? Because I'm doing all these other things or I have other concerns, and that's okay. And I've told all of my clinicians, let me know, change your availability if you need to, let's talk about it. And then I think, one of the things that we're doing is we have reduced, that we're doing more groups, and that's a way to serve more people and make it more affordable. I know it doesn't supplant individual therapy. It's different, and it's going to make our services available to some people who wouldn't have had access to them in the past. And they've gone really well thus far. It's
good.
Yeah, we have I, along with Kelly Flanagan, who's one of the other clinicians, we're co-leading an adult OCD treatment group on Tuesday afternoons. And it's been so popular that we might have to add another one. And it's, and it's affordable, and it's mitigating all of the stuff you said about shame and kind of, hey, have people been feeling this way? So that's kind of the business side. And then Instagram, my output, my which is, I don't know, my robot, I've been making sort of fewer comics, but I did the one that I made, the only one I made that was COVID specific was talking about what we just talked about, which is sort of validating the presence of multiple emotions or multiple thoughts. So you can feel, happy about having extra time and sad about, extra time, like extra alone time and sad about this. So that one, I think it got a pretty good response. We had some dialogue around that. But I didn't feel compelled to make any other COVID comics because I'm sick of it.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, because I think it's important. In tying into what we were just talking about, I was talking to Corey Hirsch right before he's OCD advocate. He's former NHL goalie. He does all this stuff for mental health. And I was talking to him and I was like, I'm 8 days behind in emails. When I do answer emails, I feel like I'm not providing anything. So I avoid it or whatever. And the point of that is this: we are, even though we're business owners, you're treating OCD, I'm helping support people with OCD, we're still experiencing this alongside people too.
Yep.
So, I mean, I haven't posted on my Instagram in however many days. I've committed that I am going to post something today. Even though it's so stupid. Like, I have like 8,000 ideas, but part of me just isn't, it's hard for me to post things until I'm just really motivated and really into it. And, but we forget that we're experiencing it alongside everyone else. And so Corey just reminded me, like, by the way, your response to COVID is okay alongside everybody else's. Yeah. And so you have to have some grace and love for yourself while you're going through this and trying to support other people through this. And I totally forget that. So it reminded me when you were saying that about Instagram of like, I just don't want to do it. And it's kind of like, it's okay if I don't. And it's okay to take a few days off from posting on whatever I need to post on, because I'm struggling too.
Yeah.
I'm not excited or happy to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I've said from the get-go with the Instagram, because the inception of the Instagram was actually at another OCD treatment group. This was an in-person one back in the olden days when we could be together. I walked into group and I said something like really snarky where I was like, what's the deal with clinics having Instagram? And everybody got quiet. I was like, it's weird, right? And they were like, no, we need to have one. So that's literally
like, we all have it. What are you talking about?
Yeah, they're like, I mean, you're the weird one. And I'm like, well, I mean, I'm used to that. But so I started it and I promised myself, I said, I will do this as long as I enjoy doing this. And I have. And the moment that I'm like, I don't really want to do it's, it's going to go. And I think I don't have any sort of qualms about that. That's not a place where my perfectionism has attached. For whatever reason.
I think it's important for people to hear that too, I think John Hirschfield brought this up when he was on the Fireside Chat, is there's also a lot of pressure for people. Well, you have all this time at home. Why aren't you doing this stuff? Or why aren't you beefing up? Or this is the opportunity. And you know what? Again, we're diving into silver lining shit. We're diving into, free concert in your neighborhood. Like, yeah, I love that. I'm going to use it. You're going to now be attached to that whenever I use it. But it's like, we do not have to celebrate a time that's destroying people's lives. Sorry, but we don't. And if you do want to, awesome. But why do we have to put pressure on other people to do things when, at people's everyday? That's not true. Some, like you said before, some people are loving this. My husband is included, and he's thriving in his new business, and doing all this wonderful stuff where, his wife over here is like breaking down every other day. Emotionally, and so it's great for everybody's experience, but again, just like life, people experiencing one thing can have 5 different viewpoints, and that's how we're all approaching this.
Yeah, Yeah, I think so too. I think it's like, and there's a part of me that is, again, in line with trying to practice what I encourage clients to practice. There's a part of me that is also trying to maintain a sense of curiosity about the whole process. And I think the fireside chats are, I mean, I've watched a number of these, and I think it is, I'm curious, like, what are people feeling? And it's all over the place. And it's interesting. I had again, in my neighborhood, there's like, my husband and I are like the young people in the neighborhood. It's a lot of older people. My friends joke that it's like, is it banana pudding night in your neighborhood? I wish it was. I go to sleep at like 9 p.m. now. I love, I can't wait to be old. But that's neither here nor there. There have been
episodes when they're having steak dinners at 3 p.m. because that's dinner.
Perfect. But there have been, I think there are, we have ambulances that come in the neighborhood, and the neighborhood has one entrance in and out. It's a very steep hill. And one of the things that I've noticed is that at one point I got extremely sensitized, almost like in a trauma reaction way, sort of hypersensitized to and vigilant about the sound of ambulances. And so when they come at night, even though they don't have their sirens on, I would wake up from a dead sleep hearing that kind of like, I don't know what it is, like hydraulic sort of sigh noise that large vehicles make. And I was awake and I was at the window and I was like, who's affected? Is everybody okay?
Wow.
And it was, I mean, I think I could have, I just tried to be curious and kind and to say, wow, these are traumatic times. I love my neighbors. I want to make sure they're okay. Of course, my body is doing this. Of course, my brain is doing this. And I can make a choice at that point as to like, do I put on clothes? Do I try to pin down where the ambulance is? Or do I just kind of, take care of myself and like try to get back to sleep? So I think that curiosity, which is really, it's hard to do. I'm not saying like, I certainly don't do it perfectly. I'm not somebody who's sobbing and I'm like, that's cool that I got snot on my face. Like how interesting. But if you can bring even a little bit of that to it, it's almost like your self lens is free of the stigma. And it's just like, you're self-compassionate. Wow, brain, of course you're scared.
Absolutely. And bringing the non-judgment piece, bringing the ability to, I think in these times when everything is so injected with fear and fear that is just so unknown still, everything is so unknown and everybody's getting their information from social media. But, my husband, doesn't wear a mask out. I'm just in full disclosure, I don't either. But like he doesn't wear one, and like for him, I fully support it. He has asthma and he has anxiety. Like end, he's going to go in and have a panic attack, plus have asthma, and he's putting himself at risk. And just the amount of disrespect he gets from people, or the amount of like, and to me, it was if he could just talk with someone and tell them, look, it's so much easier for me to just run in and run out, making sure to be distanced and wash my hands and be respectful of people. Otherwise I'm going to be struggling the entire time. It's going to be worse. But people aren't willing to hear that because it's just so much of the fear. And we have forgotten that it's okay for each of us to have to experience this in the way that we need to. And we're also managing everything else that comes alongside it.
Yep. Yeah, it is. It's kind of like each one of these, each person has a complex set of factors leading to any decision. And I think now when we're scared, we're just kind of like, well, again, it goes back to that kind of armchair epidemiologist of like, well, I know what's best, you're doing it wrong. And like,
yes,
you don't know. And you don't know.
And none of us even know what's wrong or right. We're just like blindly following a lot of stuff. And so we are losing the authentic experience that each of us is having per week. And I think it was wonderful, like at the beginning, when you said, I feel differently every moment, every minute is different, because that's the truth. Like one week I'm feeling this way, and the next week I'm terrified and scared and gloom and doom. And then, 2 days later, I might be like, oh, it's beautiful outside today. Let's go sit on the porch, and so giving, from what I can take from this and kind of project out is, we can take a moment to have grace and empathy for people. That is something that is an absolute choice, and something maybe I will take from our fireside chats today and, try to implement it this weekend. And I am going out and venturing in the world this weekend. So it's kind of like this big thing. Going to see friends, and we are going to social distance in the driveway for someone's birthday. But at the same time, just like, I'm going to take that with me and just be able to see people for who they are and what they may be experiencing. And maybe that will make them feel better and me. What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I like that. And I think that, so that sort of empathy for others and empathy for, or compassion for yourself, non-judgmental stance for yourself, knowing that all the reactions, are valid, and knowing that, all these, not that they are pleasant, because by nature of, what they are, being sad or scared generally is not pleasant, but sort of looking at those as self-validating that experience, and then just kind of letting it be there, like giving yourself permission. And I think from what you said about kind of reminding me, yes, we are providers, or we are people who are helpers, and we are affected. To me, I've tried to use that as a means without being, without making sessions about me or anything like that. But I've tried to use that therapeutically as well, to say, just to normalize, like, look, before I started this session, I was feeling differently. Now I'm here with you. I want to be here. I want to be present. And tonight, I don't know how I'll feel. And that's really scary. It's really scary to have that kind of like emotional up and down. But if I can model, like, look, guys, I'm riding the waves along with you. And it's not a pretty ride. It's bumpy. There's not. There's how many times? This is like actually now a challenge of just like, how many times can I mention snot?
I think you've mentioned it 4 times so far.
Okay. I feel satisfied with that.
Well, I think it's powerful. It might be scary, but I think you have just defined the exact reasons why we're doing these fireside chats, is because you, regardless of what you do for a living, your degree, your level of education on anything, it all boils down to you're still human and you're still experiencing this alongside all of us and everyone. And it's all new for us. And if you feel one way in the morning, and then at the end of the day, you're on a completely different wavelength, that's fine. But in between, I think it's important to remember, what can we do for each other to help support where we are in that emotional roller coaster, because everything is valid, and we all should be validated. I hate the word should, but we all deserve.
Yeah.
In a way, we all deserve to be validated through this, regardless of who you are and what you do and what you're experiencing through this.
Yeah. If you don't wear a mask, it doesn't mean you want to kill people. If you don't go to your neighborhood concert, it doesn't mean you hate your neighbors or you're a bad neighbor. Like anything that you do, don't make assumptions about why people are. I mean, that's a little judgy too. You should not make assumptions. But I think, like, not only is that more helpful for the individuals, that you may be judging or making appraisals about, but it's also more helpful for you. Like, carrying judgment around is natural, and as it naturally arises, to just kind of work on softening that, I think, is so therapeutic. Now, I think that's one of the biggest things we can do.
And this is the perfect opportunity to do it. I know it's hard when you're getting conflicting and, toxic and, horrible messages on social media. So what can you do to limit that and think? I mean, I always think to myself, I'm having a vastly different experience than someone that's 80 at this point, or someone that's a teenager and doesn't have the understanding of the world like I do, you know, and their whole world was wrapped up in prom or graduation or summer camp. Like I used to be a counselor at summer camp when I was in college. That would have been taken away from me and I would have been devastated. But now as an adult, it doesn't seem as, you know, big of a deal, but I'm trying to put myself in other people's shoes to say, what are their circumstances? How is this impacting them? And how can I have empathy? So that's kind of my final thoughts, I guess, for today.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, thank you for being on here, Amy. It's been so awesome. I've had like all these mind-blowing realizations and just being able to relate in so many different ways. Like the concert thing's going to stick with me forever. The snot's going to stick with me for a while.
Literally sticking all over you. Yes, I got a fifth one in.
Anyway, I just appreciate what you do. I appreciate your advocacy and for being part of the Game Changers movement. So anything else you want to let everybody know as we close out?
No, I think it's been great. I appreciate the opportunity, and it's great to meet both you and your hair. If not in person, at least over video.
You know, when I was doing our little meme today, I almost posted the Muppet animal instead of my face.
Love that. Yeah.
Because I feel like that's what's happening here. If Ethan is still on here, he's going to die that you just said that.
You're welcome, Ethan.
And thank you so much to all of you who have joined us today. We have hit a lot of topics that I think that are so important to what we are all experiencing today. One of the things I just really want to emphasize is that wherever you are at, however you are feeling, I know that we are very much pulled in all these different directions by shoulds and this or that or what ifs or else's. I want to just give you permission, as silly as that sounds, because sometimes I need someone to give me permission. I'm going to give you permission right now to just be where you're at. Validate that for yourself. And if you can't do that for you, I'm validating it for you, because these are tough, uncertain times. We're going into another weekend that doesn't feel like a weekend because everything is so confusing. But here at OCD Game Changers, we're here for you. We're showing up every week trying to help you understand that no matter where you are, what you're doing, what circumstance, we're walking alongside of you, probably feeling this very same things. So we'll see you next week on Tuesday with Ben Harris, who's an OCD therapist, and Allison Dotson on Friday, who's an awesome OCD advocate. Can't wait. Thank you so much, Amy, for being here. And thank you for all who have joined us. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye.